Yemi's world ended at exactly 8:47 p.m. on a humid Thursday night in Lagos. The phone rang only once before he answered, out of habit, not urgency. But the voice on the other end wasn't a customer from his car repair shop, nor a friend asking for weekend drinks. It was a man. Calm, cold, quiet. "She's not where she says she is," he said. No name, no greeting. "Adaobi, your wife. She's not in Ibadan with her cousin. She's here in Lekki, with me, right now." The line went dead. Just like that, silence swallowed everything. The power cut a second later, plunging their two-bedroom apartment into darkness, as if Lagos itself understood the weight of the truth that had just been spoken. Yemi stood frozen, the phone still against his ear, hearing the echo of that stranger's voice long after the call had ended. His chest tightened. Adaobi, his Ada, the girl he married with a plastic ring when they couldn't afford gold, the woman he carried through poverty and pain like a crown on his head. How many nights had he walked from Owelegba to Apapa just to save enough money for her dream boutique in Surulere? How many meals had he skipped to fund her fashion diploma? And now, another man? Another life? His ears rang, but it wasn't the sound of Lagos traffic. It was betrayal, humming like a curse in his blood. The apartment was too quiet. The silence screamed. Yemi walked to the wall and turned on the emergency lamp. Its dim light painted everything in gray, like a mourning cloth. Her slippers were by the door. Her perfume still lingered in the air. Her smile still lived in the pictures on the wall. But none of it meant anything anymore. The foundation of his world had cracked. And the worst part? He didn't even know the man's name, only that he existed. And that was enough to set fire to everything. The next morning, Yemi didn't mention the call. He couldn't. He watched Adaobi move through the kitchen with the same grace she'd always had, humming an old Asa song, wearing the Ankara wrapper he bought her from Tehuosho Market. She laughed at something on her phone, then caught his eyes watching her. She smiled that smile, the one that used to stop his heart. Now it twisted like a blade in his chest. "I missed you," she said, reaching for his hand. "Ibadan was boring without you." Her voice was sugar-coated lies. Yemi forced a nod, his mouth dry. He wanted to ask her outright, "Who is he? Why did you do it?" But he couldn't. Not yet. Not until he had proof. And so he swallowed the fire raging inside him and wore the mask of a loving husband, the same way Adaobi now wore the mask of a faithful wife. He followed her stories carefully over the next few days, every word, every gap, every inconsistency. Her cousin in Ibadan never returned his text. Her boutique's account balance had a mysterious 200,000 naira deposit she couldn't explain. And then on Sunday night, when she said she was going to a prayer vigil at Mount Zion Parish in Ikeja, Yemi waited until her Uber left, then called his mechanic apprentice, Dio. "Get the bike," he said. "We're going to follow someone." Dio didn't ask why. Loyalty runs deep in Lagos streets. That night, under the cover of neon lights and generator hums, Yemi and Dio tailed the Uber through Lekki Phase 1. The car didn't stop at a church. It stopped at a gated duplex with white columns and a tall mango tree outside. Adaobi stepped out, laughing, and ran into the arms of a tall man in a wine-colored caftan. They kissed, not a shy, stolen kiss, a familiar, bold one, as if this was home. Yemi's vision blurred not from rain, but from tears. For 3 days, Yemi spoke less than 30 words to Adaobi. He answered her questions with nods and half-smiles, cooked when she claimed to be too tired, even ran her a bath the evening she returned from the church vigil. She didn't suspect a thing. Or maybe she did, and just didn't care. Either way, the silence between them thickened like Harmattan fog, heavy and dry, yet full of tension you could cut with a knife. Yemi couldn't forget what he saw in Lekki. That caftan-wearing man with his wife's lipstick on his lips. The way Adaobi leaned into him like she'd found peace. Yemi had stood across the road with Dio, fists clenched, teeth grinding. Dio had whispered, "Oga, let's go. You don't deserve this." But Yemi couldn't move. He wasn't just watching his wife kiss another man, he was watching his own failure, painted in live color. He'd worked so hard to build her dreams, and now she lived in someone else's arms while sleeping in his bed. On the third night, Yemi took down the wedding photo from the sitting room wall. They'd taken it in front of an old baobab tree in Bogota, where they'd once promised each other forever. He held it for hours, staring at the joy in her eyes, the way she clutched his arm like nothing else in the world mattered. He wondered when that joy had died. Was it when he couldn't afford the trip to Dubai? When her friends started driving Benz and she still entered Danfo? Or had it always been there, a hunger for more? A thirst for a life he couldn't give her? Yemi placed the frame face down on the table. Something inside him cracked, not loud, not violent, but like the slow split of old wood. Quiet. Irreversible. Lagos doesn't sleep, and neither did Yemi. He sat on the edge of the bed at 3:13 a.m., while Adaobi slept beside him peacefully, like someone with a clean conscience. Her breathing was soft, her hand draped across his thigh, the same hand that had caressed another man. The same lips that now mumbled his name in sleep had whispered another man's name beneath lecky moonlight. Yemi felt like a stranger in his own life, a ghost in the home he built brick by brick, love by love. The next day, Yemi returned to the boutique he'd helped Adobe set up. He'd never involved himself much. He wanted her to have something that was hers, but now he walked through the racks of imported fabrics and mannequins like a detective at a crime scene. Her assistant, a shy girl named Kem, was hesitant at first but folded under his calm, wounded eyes. Madam sometimes travels to supplier meetings, but it's always with the same man. Light-skinned, drives a black Range. She says he's an investor, she said. Investor. The word echoed like a cruel joke. Yemi's heart sank. Adobe hadn't just cheated, she'd built a second life. Later that evening, Yemi visited his mother in Agege. The smell of egusi soup filled the air, but his appetite was dead. Mama knew something was wrong the moment she saw his eyes. She didn't press, she only prayed. Son, love does not make a man foolish, but blindness does. Don't let pride tie your hands while your heart bleeds. Her words sank deep. Yemi didn't respond. He couldn't. He left before the food cooled, walking alone through the crowded streets of Agege, where generators hummed and lovers laughed, and the world kept spinning even when his had stopped. He realized then he couldn't just watch this burn. He had to decide revenge, forgiveness, or something far more dangerous. Silence. He woke up before dawn, left Adaobi sleeping, and headed straight to Lekki. He'd memorized the address. The gate was high and painted in matte black, the type only people with new money could afford. Yemi wore a plain shirt, dusty jeans, and brought nothing but the pain boiling inside him. He stood across the street, blending in with a roadside food vendor. He waited for hours. Then the gate opened, and there he was, the man in the wine caftan. He was taller than Yemi remembered, light-skinned with an arrogant swagger. He drove a black Range Rover with tinted windows and music loud enough to shake the compound walls. Yemi stepped into the road. The car screeched to a halt. The man leaned out of the window. "Guy, are you mad?" he barked. Yemi didn't speak. He just stared burning holes through him with his eyes. "You dey craze?" the man spat again, stepping out of the car now. "What's your damn problem?" His gold wristwatch flashed in the sun. He smelled like designer cologne and stolen moments. So this is him, Yemi thought. The man Adobe moaned for, the man she lied for, the man she gave his love to. Then Yemi punched him. Not once, not twice, but 3 times, fists crashing into the man's mouth, his jaw, his pride. People rushed in. Drivers stopped. A pepper seller screamed. The man fought back, swinging wildly, but Yemi moved like a man possessed. The pain, the betrayal, the sleepless nights, they all landed in his blows. Blood trickled down the man's nose. Finally, someone pulled Yemi off. He was breathing hard, eyes red with fury. But the message was clear. "You don't know me," Yemi growled, voice shaking, "but you've stolen everything I gave my life for." Then he walked away, not waiting for an apology, not needing one, because that wasn't the end. No, it was only the beginning. Adeobi noticed the blood first. Yemi walked into the house with a swollen knuckle and dried blood on his collar. She turned from the gas cooker, brows raised. "What happened to you?" she asked, voice thin with confusion, but not concern. Yemi dropped his keys on the table with force. I fell, he muttered. The lie hung in the air like smoke. Adaobi frowned, moved closer. Fell where? Yemi, what's going on with you these days? Her voice softened, almost maternal. But he stepped away. The scent of her perfume, his favorite, suddenly made him nauseous. He stared at her then. Really stared. How had he missed it before? The distance in her touch, the way she avoided eye contact when he spoke, the carefully hidden phone conversations that always ended with, "It's just my supplier." She had already left him emotionally, it was only her body that returned each night. And Yemi? He had been living with a ghost, a woman whose heart had been stolen, maybe willingly, by a man who now had a piece of his soul in his hands. You're not in love with me anymore, he finally said. Adaobi flinched. What are you talking about? He walked past her, the smell of jollof rice burning behind her. He didn't stop. You can keep pretending if it helps you sleep, he said coldly, but I'm wide awake now. He entered their bedroom, closed the door, and locked it, leaving her in the kitchen, staring at the blood-stained floor like it had spoken a truth louder than any argument. That night, Adaobi didn't sleep beside him. She stayed on the couch. And for the first time in their 7-year marriage, Yemi didn't care where she slept. He didn't dream either. There was no room for dreams anymore. Only plans. The silence between them had turned into a war zone. Every movement felt like a provocation. Every glance was loaded. For 3 days, they barely spoke until Friday night, when the storm finally came. Yemi was in the bedroom packing a bag of clothes. Not because he was leaving, no. He wanted her to know he could and that he might. Adaobi entered quietly, her face drawn. So, this is it? She asked, arms crossed. You're just going to walk away without a word? Her voice trembled, but Yemi didn't turn. You gave your words to someone else, he said without looking up. Why should mine still matter to you? She stood there silent for a few seconds, then said what he never expected to hear. Fine. You want the truth? I'll give it to you. Her voice hardened. I got tired, Yemi. Tired of struggling, tired of living in hope, tired of watching other women succeed while I waited for your dreams to work. I built this boutique with your help, yes. But he gave me more. He made me feel seen, wanted. Her eyes welled up, but no tears fell. You gave me loyalty, but he gave me freedom. Yemi froze. Then slowly he zipped a bag and sat down. He looked at her with eyes emptied of affection. You weren't tired, Adaobi. You were greedy. You didn't fall out of love. You walked out barefoot into the rain and never looked back. He stood, moved closer. You think freedom is found in a man's Range Rover? In secret kisses? That's not freedom, Ada. That's escape. And one day, it will burn you. Her voice broke. I never meant to hurt you. But you did, he said. And meaning doesn't heal betrayal. She turned and left the room, the sound of her sobs echoing down the hallway. Yemi stood in the quiet, every breath now sharper than the last. The truth had come, and it had teeth. Only this time it was Adaobi who answered. Yemi was in the sitting room, sipping lukewarm tea, when her voice rose sharply from the bedroom. What do you mean the check bounced? She yelled. Her tone shifted between panic and disbelief. He didn't move, just listened. She was pacing now. No, he promised. He said he wired it last week. What do you mean he's left the country? Silence. Then a scream, high-pitched, raw. A crashing sound followed. Yemi entered the room to find the mirror shattered on the floor, her phone lying in pieces. She was on her knees, weeping into her palms. He's gone, she whispered. Olamide, he used me. Her boutique account was empty. The investors she gave her heart and body to had drained her savings, pulled out his fake investments, and disappeared into thin air. The man in the wine caftan hadn't just stolen her affection, he'd stolen her future. Yemi didn't speak. He leaned against the doorframe, watching her collapse into her own mess. For a moment, pity flickered, but only briefly. This wasn't karma. This was consequence. Still, somewhere in his heart, The echo of the love they once shared throbbed painfully. He didn't say, "I told you so." He didn't offer comfort, but he didn't walk away either. Later that night, she knocked gently on his door, swollen-eyed and barefoot. "Yemi," she said in a voice so fragile it barely survived the air. "I know I broke you, but I have nothing left. Only you." Her hands trembled, her pride shattered. He looked at her not as a husband, not as a man scorned, but as someone staring at a familiar stranger, standing in the ruins of everything they once built. And he said nothing. Because sometimes silence is the loudest answer. For days, Adobe moved through the house like a ghost in her own body. Her boutique was closed, her friends no longer returned her calls, and her cousin in Ibadan had stopped picking up. The man she gambled her marriage on had vanished into thin air, and now she was left with the man she had betrayed. Yemi, her husband, her rock, the one who had never raised his voice, never raised his hand, but had been crushed under the weight of her choices. Yemi said little. He cooked his own meals, slept in the guest room. Each morning he rose before sunrise and left for the auto workshop, returning only after dark. He avoided her not out of cruelty, but out of necessity. His heart was still broken, still bleeding. But inside him, a new strength had formed, something sharper than anger, deeper than revenge, a clarity. She had buried something in him, but he had also found something, his own worth. One evening, as the sun bled across the Lagos sky, Adobe placed a worn envelope on the table. Inside were divorce papers. "If this is what you want," she said softly, "I won't fight. You deserve better than the version of me you got." Her voice broke. I thought I wanted freedom. But all I ever really needed was what you gave me, your loyalty, your patience, your heart." Yemi sat across from her, silent. Then finally he spoke. "Loyalty without respect is slavery, Adeobi, and love without trust is a prison. I don't know what we were, but it wasn't marriage." He didn't touch the papers. "I don't want revenge. I don't even want to punish you. I just want peace." She wiped her eyes. "So, what happens now?" Yemi stood, picked up the envelope, and walked toward the door. "Now," he said quietly, "now we find out if love can survive in ashes." The court date was set for the following month, but something shifted in the days that followed. Yemi no longer carried the heaviness in his shoulders. His workshop thrived, he expanded into battery servicing, and the neighborhood boys respected him more than ever. He laughed again, even if quietly, and sometimes even hummed old songs while fixing cars. But at home, silence still lived between him and Adobe. Not anger, just the kind of silence that happens when two people have seen each other naked in the ugliest way possible. Adeobi, meanwhile, had become a shadow of the woman she once was. Her boutique gone, her reputation dented, her body present, but her mind lost in guilt and regret. She began volunteering at the church, started cooking again, and sometimes left small gifts at Yemi's door, a fruit basket, a repaired shirt, a note with a simple "thank you." But Yemi remained polite, distant, respectful. Until one Sunday when she found him sitting beneath the old baobab tree near their church, the same one in their wedding photo. She approached slowly. "I've been thinking about that day," she said, voice fragile. "The day we made vows here. I meant every word back then." Yemi looked at the trees, thick roots, weathered by time, unmoved by storms. "I did too," he said. "But love, it's not just about promises. It's about what you do when keeping them hurts." They sat together in silence for a long while. The baobab stood tall above them, branches wide like an old witness to both joy and ruin. Finally, Yemi turned to her. "I don't hate you, but I can't love you the same way anymore." She nodded slowly, tears slipping down. "So what now?" she whispered. "We heal," he said, "separately. And maybe one day, we forgive. Fully." He rose and walked away, his shadow long in the evening light. Adobe remained under the baobab, weeping quietly not for Yemi, not for her boutique, but for the woman she had lost inside herself. And for the first time, the baobab wept too. The end. What's your take? When the Baobab Wept is a story of love, betrayal, consequence, and healing. But now we'd love to hear from you. What would you have done if you were Yemi or Adaobi? Can true love survive betrayal? Or should it end at the first crack? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if this story moved you, like, share, and tag someone who needs to read this. Your voice matters. Let's talk.